What kind of schedule do you put in to write that many books?
I get up in the morning, sit down and write. When I finish writing, go back to bed.
So I'd like to make some remarks about writing. First of all, my advice is really the same. It's the same for anybody writing any kind of book. But I guess it's more for fiction writers like myself than perhaps for others. But it's really basically this: write. What makes a writer is writing. You have to write. Writing to a person like me and asking for advice is in a way a waste of time. You have to sit down and you have to write the book of your dreams. You have to write what you want to be known for. You have to create a universe of your own in print, and there's only one way to do that, and that's to kick out the pages every day. Kick them out and save them. You know, you may write 2 or 3 chapters of a book and decide you hate it. Don't throw it away, save it. It's very easy to do in the computer age. You make a folder for that, you put it away, you save it. But the main thing is to write, to create through writing the person you want to be as a writer. Just get that manuscript done. When you have a full manuscript in your hands, whether it's a collection of short stories, a collection of poems, or a novel, then it's time to worry about publishing and getting that work out to the world.
How many words do you write a day when you're working on a book?
Oh, anywhere between 2 and 10,000. It depends on how exciting I get. Or
My daily writing routine is I'm up at 5 o'clock, shower, walk the dog, feed the dog, at my desk by 6:30, and I work all day until 5. If it's going well, I sit in here as happy and smiling and laughing, and if it's not, people hear me thumping my head against the desk. But thankfully, more days than not, it goes better than not. And I find long writing sessions much better than 3 or 4 hour sessions because I fall away into the world of the novel. I do not outline my novels. I let the character go with it. I actually think the best novels are the ones that start with the character.
People will say, do you keep a notebook? And the answer is, I think a writer's notebook is the best way in the world to immortalize bad ideas. My idea about a good idea is one that sticks around and sticks around and sticks around. It's like, to me, it's like if you were to put breadcrumbs in a strainer and shake it, which is what the passage of time is for me. It's like shaking a strainer. All this stuff that's not very big and not very important just kind of dissolves and falls out. But the good stuff stays. You know, the big pieces stay.
I've talked to a lot of young writers, and what I typically say to them is that there are 3 things you have to do if you want to write. The first is you have to read a lot. That's where you're going to get your fuel. You're going to sort of ingest those voices and learn what it is to be a writer by reading what other people have written before you. So you have to be a reader if you want to write. The second thing is you have to practice. Writing is like a sport. It's like athletics. If you don't practice, you don't get any better. You can't just talk about doing it. You have to actually sit in the chair and get out the keyboard or get out the pad of paper and actually write. If you can do a little bit every day, that's great. It doesn't have to be a lot, but even a page a day will build up your writing muscles and you'll get better at what you're doing. And the third thing, just as important as the other 2, is that you can't give up. A lot of people don't get published. It's not because they couldn't have, it's because they gave up. They didn't keep at it, they didn't finish that story they were thinking about finishing, they got one rejection note, and they thought it was the end of the world. You have to keep going. You have to listen to all those writers who talk about the ream of rejection notes that they had before they finally found the story that they were really meant to tell. And that's the thing too, you have to find the story, not just that you think it would be cool to write, but that sort of grabs you and says, oh, you have to write me. That's the story that you should be writing.
For all your stories, do you have like a whole bunch of ideas in your head already, or do you, when you like start to write a book, does it just all come then?
It's usually one at a time. Especially, it's gotten harder because I've written so many books.
Yay.
And it's usually, I mean, I'm so lucky because every time I need a new idea every month. I need an idea a month because I do a book a month. And every time I need one, I get one. Usually from a title. I don't really have ideas in advance, but I get title ideas. And almost all my ideas come from thinking of a really good title and then seeing where the title leads. And so maybe I'll make a list of title ideas and then go back and try to come up with ideas. I think I work backwards from every other author. I think most authors get an idea for a story and then think of a title later.
Yeah, I always thought like the title was the hardest part.
Well, I do too. That's why I like to have it. If I have a really good title, then I know I don't have to worry about it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, this is true, I've had really good ideas for stories and I couldn't think of titles for them, so I threw out the idea.
Really?
Because I knew I'd never come up with a good title.
So, is there a reason that you do that? Do you think of the title?
It's just the way I work. It's just the way it works for me. Mm-hmm. I'd be walking down the street. I was walking down, and I thought this title popped in my mind: Brain Juice. Mm-hmm. Brain Juice. And I thought, that's great. It turned out to be one of my favorite Goosebumps books. And so I just had this title, and then you start to think about it. And you say, well, what would happen if kids would drink brain juice? What would happen to them? Maybe they'd get really smart. Well, what would happen if they would get too smart? Maybe they'd get smarter and smarter, and they'd get so smart no one could stand them. And then it would. What if it would ruin their lives because they'd be too smart for everyone else, and they couldn't stay in school, and they'd lose all their friends. And that's how that, and then it developed, and then some aliens got in the picture. So that's how it develops from the title. That just seems to work for me.
Yeah.
And the models for me were things like Mr. Bridge and Mrs. Bridge, which are very, very tight, short chapters.
So there you are.
That's where it started for me.
On night shift in a mental hospital.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a great story, just on the time. So the books are, looking through your books, we've got quite a lot of them in the office, as it turns out, and you do like the short chapter. A chapter in most books is, 2.5 pages would be a long chapter in one of your books. What's the thinking behind that?
Well, 2.5 pages wouldn't be a long chapter, but yes, we do the 2, 3, 4 pages. I don't know. Look, it's my style. I think it'd be a disaster if everybody wrote that way. But I have a unique style. I was on a panel one time in New York, and the other 4 writers took themselves pretty seriously. But the moderator said, what's interesting? Patterson's the only one of you guys that has a style that's unique, So it's my style. It's not for everybody, and it would be a disaster if everybody wrote that way. But it's the way I like to communicate. It's scenes. Michael Connolly, who's a very good mystery writer, he says what Jim does is he says every single chapter. I don't always succeed, but I try. Every single chapter moves both the characterization and the action forward, and turns on the movie projectors in our heads. And that's what I'm trying to do.